to my book reading of my very first book, Lilly Prospero and the Magic Rabbit. I wrote this, well, a while ago now. It came out in 2016. I'm having a really lovely time revisiting it properly, and also my little girl has started reading it for the first time, so I'm remembering it all afresh and experiencing it, both reading it myself and through her experience of it. So this has been a really, really lovely experience. Kind of scary and nerve-wracking, but overall very positive, and I'm excited to write book 3. Yeah, so I am on to chapter 5 today, and yeah, I will read it for you now. Chapter 5. "What did you do?" demanded Geoffrey when Lily dropped her bags on the bed that afternoon, stamping his back foot and scowling at her. "What?" "That thing downstairs," Geoffrey said in disgust. "Oh, that," said Lily with a sigh. She was so confused and her brain was exhausted. When she'd spoken on the phone to her mother, expecting at least a degree of shock, her mum had barely reacted at all, a strange glaze coming over her voice, as she immediately agreed to come and collect Priscilla. When Lily had arrived home that afternoon, she'd found Priscilla perched on a pink silk pillow on the table beside her mother's laptop, bedecked in a diamante collar, and licking daintily at a bowl of cream. Her mum acted as though Priscilla had always been there, giving not a single mention of this strange new member of the Prospero family. "I know I said I'd be careful and only use it when I had to, but I did have to," Lily guiltily insisted. "I needed to prove I was powerful enough." "Powerful enough for what?" asked Geoffrey sternly, his ears twitching. "To be accepted," she said earnestly, pleading at him with her eyes for approval and understanding. "They need me, Geoffrey. People want to hurt them, and Alex thinks I could help. I could save lives. Amy thinks I'm going to take them, but if Alex is right and I could save them, I need to practice and prove to them what I can really do. I need them to see me." "I understand. Come here," said Geoffrey gently. He nudged his head at the bed beside him, and Lily obediently sat. "You have a beautiful magic in you. Honestly, you do. And I definitely hope you use it for good and to help people. I don't know how yet, but I know that if we work together and learn enough about it, then we can get the most out of you without risking anyone in the process. I believe in you." "Thanks, Geoffrey," she said, stroking his ears, finding comfort in the soft warmth. "You're special, Lily," he said, leaning against her affectionately. "I can see you." "You're the best rabbit ever, Geoffrey," she said, kissing his fluffy head, grateful for his words but longing to achieve more despite his advice. "I just love escaping to reality, you know. They have such amazing powers." "You do know that this is reality, right?" he asked, putting a paw on her leg and looking up at her with concern in his eyes. "This, here, now. Your mum and dad. Your home." "Oh, I know," said Lily vaguely, "but magic is the real world." "What powers do they have?" asked the rabbit, frowning thoughtfully. "Max can levitate, but Alex says if he works he'll be able to fly. And Una is a liquid manipulator, and there's Sophia, who's a shapeshifter, which is totally cool. And then Tereska. She's a speaker, but I don't understand what that means." "A speaker?" Geoffrey mused. "Speaking is old magic. Very old. What does it mean?" "Doesn't matter," he said dismissively. "So, how was the rest of your day?" Lily eyed him suspiciously, getting the distinct feeling he wasn't telling her something important. "Fine. Mum didn't react to Priscilla, though. Sort of like with the seagulls. She just acted like nothing strange happened." "It's certainly interesting," agreed Geoffrey, not meeting her eye. "Come on, let's go and make friends with Priscilla," said Lily. "She's new, we need to make her welcome." Grumbling, Geoffrey allowed himself to be carried downstairs. The next morning, Lily carried her painting into school carefully, excited to hand it in. "Right, ladies and gents," announced Mr. Hogg. "Let's see what we've got." He went around the room examining the offerings and commenting on each. Saffron's beach scene was beautiful, awash with rich colours, with a flock of white seagulls swooping through the cobalt sky. Saffron smiled across the room at Lily and mouthed, "Good luck." Lily nodded gratefully. She so wished Saffron would ignore her cruel, spiteful friends and come over to her. As much as Alex's friendship in reality was exciting, and as much as Geoffrey's friendship at home was reassuring, she longed for a companion in the normality of day-to-day life that the solitude of unpopularity had denied her. But Saffron didn't come over. She remained with her friends. Sitting down in her history lesson, Lily felt the skin on the back of her neck began to prickle. When she looked up, she realised Mr. Stubbs was watching her, a peculiar expression on his face. He immediately looked away when she caught his eye and busied himself moving paperwork around his desk. Lily squirmed uncomfortably in her seat. He seemed far too interested in her, and she didn't understand why. It made her uncomfortable. "Today, class, we are going to be applying the study of history to our own reality," Mr. Stubbs said, standing once all the seats were filled. "You are going to be working on a family tree. Delve into your family, learn about your roots, your history. Work on it over the weekend and bring it in on Monday. Go back as far as you can. Talk to everyone you can. And learn about how your family have shaped your reality." Maisie's hand stuck up in the air. "What does this have to do with World War I?" "Well," said Mr. Stubbs, pushing his hands into his pockets, "it's applying the techniques of learning about the past to our own pasts. History is full of scope for application in all areas of our world, Maisie." Lily pulled out her pad and started writing out the family she knew. Something was niggling at her, but she couldn't work out what. Suddenly it hit her. Reality. Just the night before, she and Geoffrey had discussed reality, and he had emphatically told her that her family was her reality. Was it a coincidence that suddenly she was being reminded of that again? It had to be, she decided, but an uneasy feeling remained with her. 10 minutes later, the fire alarm suddenly blasted out, its ring slamming around the room and startling everyone out of their history-induced slumber. "Right, everyone, down to the field," said Mr. Stubbs with a dull sigh. "You know the drill. I do wish they'd tell me in advance when they're doing this." They all picked up their bags and headed for the door, chatting as they went. Stepping outside, the atmosphere suddenly changed. Smoke was billowing from the back of the buildings, and pupils were running away from it with panicked looks on their faces. "Oh shit," muttered Mr. Stubbs, hurrying the class away from the building. "Right, go, go, go!" The field was soon full of excited chatter. The children lined up in their form groups and watched the black smoke violently attacking the white of the clouds. "It was Ashia," came Alex's voice in Lily's ear. She turned, but he was invisible. "What?" she whispered out the corner of her mouth, trying to be inconspicuous. "She's a fire starter. She was trying to overpower Una and set fire to the damn school." He sounded furious. "What happened?" asked Lily. But silence replied. He had gone. Fire engines blasted into the school car park. Firemen, kitted out in yellow, leapt from the engines and raced off to deal with the fire, Mrs. Crank flapping around them like a pterodactyl. "Right, everyone," announced Mrs. Robinson, clapping her hands to get the attention of 10D. "Nobody is allowed to leave early without parental permission. However, nobody can go back in the building until the officials have given the all clear. We'll wait here until we know who's going where, but anybody permitted can leave early. Everyone else will wait until normal time in the mobile classrooms." Lily watched Saffron sighing a resigned sigh. She knew she wouldn't be granted the reprieve of an early finish. As the office staff made calls, pupils were gradually either given the nod to leave on their own accord, or parents showed up to collect them. 10 minutes into waiting, Lily's mum came walking over the field towards them. Lily went to join her mother, who held up her hand for her to wait. Lily watched as her mum took Mrs. Robinson aside, speaking in a hushed voice. "Saffron, Lily," Mrs. Robinson said, beckoning the girls over for a moment. Hesitantly, with the eyes of Saffron's friends burning into their backs, Lily and Saffron stepped out of line and walked to join Lily's mum. "It's nice to meet you, Saffron," said Lily's mum kindly. "I've heard a lot about you." I was wondering if you'd like to come home with us today. Assuming your parents don't mind, of course. Lily looked open-mouthed at her mother. She couldn't believe her mother was doing that to her. Now everyone would see Saffron publicly reject her, and she could do nothing to stop it. It was like watching a slow-motion car wreck. That'd be nice, thank you, said Saffron, looking at her feet. Lily stared at her open-mouthed. She couldn't believe what she just heard. It seemed even more shocking than when she first discovered magic. Saffron smiled at her shyly before looking back down at her feet. Mrs. Robinson led them to the office staff, who'd set up a base in a mobile building, while behind them, Saffron's friends talked loudly and in disgust about the situation. While one of the office ladies waited on the phone, the two girls stood in silence. After several attempts, she was able to reach Saffron's father, who immediately gave his permission. Wonderful, said Lily's mum, with an appreciative nod, and started out across the grounds towards the car park. Then let's head home. It's nearly lunchtime, so why don't we take Geoffrey and Priscilla outside and we can have a picnic? Lily blushed. Her mum was obviously so excited that a friend was coming home that she was talking as though they were 10 rather than 15. But Saffron seemed keen on the idea and was looking more and more relaxed the further they got from the school, so she didn't complain. Who are Geoffrey and Priscilla? Saffron asked as they climbed into Lily's mum's car. Geoffrey's a rabbit and Priscilla's a cat. That's nice, said Saffron with a disinterested smile. I've never had a pet, but I didn't really get the point anyway. It's just a rabbit, you know. He is not just a rabbit, Lily grumbled. Did you hand your painting in today as well, Saffron? Lily's mum asked before an awkward silence could descend. Yeah, said Saffron, fiddling with her hair. I'm so nervous. I'll die if I don't go through. Goodness. Well, I'll keep everything crossed then, Lily's mum said with a hearty laugh. When they pulled up at home, Lily's mum ushered them upstairs, promising to call them when the picnic was ready. Lily pushed her bedroom door open and found Geoffrey and Priscilla deep in conversation. Geoffrey turned to Lily and said, You're home early. Then he spotted Saffron. The rabbit. It spoke, she breathed. And then she fainted. Saffron? Saffron? Lily said, shaking her friend's shoulders. Oh God, she's dead. Geoffrey and Priscilla leaned over her. She's not dead, said Priscilla, nudging Saffron's pale face with a paw. I could slash her for you. That would shock her awake. Don't tell her about your magic, Lily, said Geoffrey. It's too soon, she won't handle it. We need to put protecting you before everything, all right? Talking animals is already too much for her. This isn't her world. Yeah, okay, Lily agreed. Lily? Saffron said as she opened her eyes. Oh well, sighed Priscilla, retracting her claws and inspecting her paw in a dissatisfied manner. Oh my God, the cat spoke too. Don't faint again, said Lily, scooping her hand under Saffron's head and sitting her upright. Saffron, you can't tell anyone, said Geoffrey seriously. This has to be our secret. Do you understand? Saffron gawped at him. What is it? She asked, turning to Lily, staring suspiciously at Geoffrey out the corner of her eye. He's my rabbit. No, but seriously, he's just my rabbit. Why can they talk? Saffron asked. I don't actually know, Lily admitted. But please can it be our secret? Just ours. Saffron looked back at the animals, who gave her a sweet, pleading smile, and then back at Lily. Yeah, our secret. Cool. Lily breathed a sigh of relief and helped Saffron to her feet. So, how long have you had talking animals? 5 days. Who knows about it? Just you. Wow. That's pretty awesome, enthused Saffron with a huge smile. Can I stroke them? You'll have to ask them, Lily said, laughing. Oh yeah, Saffron chuckled. May I stroke you, please? Please note, I prefer a firmer stroke on my neck, gradually lightening as you approach the tail. But do not touch the tail, instructed Priscilla, strictly, approaching Saffron and standing before her with her head held high. Geoffrey rolled his eyes as Saffron obeyed the cat's instructions to the letter, with joy on her face. This is so awesome, said Saffron breathily. Thanks, said Lily proudly. Girls, came Lily's mum's voice from downstairs. Lunch is ready. Do you want to carry Priscilla and I'll carry Geoffrey? Offered Lily. Yeah, she said excitedly. Is that all right, Priscilla? Certainly, nodded the cat. Lily gave Geoffrey a squeeze when she picked him up and buried her face in the soft fur on his neck. I'm so glad Saffron knows, she whispered to him. It feels like you've made it real. You've given me a friend. A real friend. They carried the animals outside, where Lily's mum had laid out a huge tartan blanket, laden with sandwiches, samosas, crudités and dips, bowls of crisps and cans of pop. Admiring it, they went to sit down, when a banging knock came at the front door. You girls sit, I'll get it, said Lily's mum, stepping back into the house. A moment later, they heard the door open before a voice shrieked, Where is she? Where is my daughter? You must be Saffron's mum, said Lily's mum's voice. She sounded taken aback but calm. She's just out in the garden with Lily. We're about to have lunch. Would you care to join us? Tearing into sight, a tall, slim woman with fierce green eyes and tightly pulled red hair shouted, Saffron, get here, right now. Saffron stayed standing beside Lily, her bottom lip starting to quiver. In her arms, Priscilla's tail started to flick. I'm having lunch with Lily, she said defiantly, much to Lily's surprise. You are not eating off the ground in the company of animals like a gypsy, growled her mother. Come here, right now. Excuse me, Mrs. Jones, but it's just a normal picnic. It's perfectly hygienic. Please take a seat and we can talk about it, Lily's mum said in a reassuring but firm voice. Don't be stupid, spat Saffron's mum. Mum, please, begged Saffron, holding tightly onto Priscilla like a comfort blanket. Saffron's mum stormed over the grass, grabbed Saffron by the arm and yanked at her. Priscilla was thrown to the ground by the force of it and Saffron cried out in pain. Mum, please, Saffron wailed, tears starting to run down her cheeks. Stop it, protested Lily's mum, looking horrified. She's just spending time with her friend. She already has friends, Saffron's mum snarled, her grip on Saffron's arm tightening as Saffron wept silently at her side. Friends I selected for her before your daughter came along and started interfering. Lily was terrified and clung silently to Geoffrey, too scared to move or speak. She watched aghast as Saffron's mum dragged Saffron behind her as she swept from the house, Saffron whimpering as they went. Please let go of her, begged Lily's mum, following, her voice straining. Saffron, please, if you ever need anything at all, we're here for you. The door slammed. Lily, Priscilla and Geoffrey came into the house and found Lily's mum sat on the floor crying. Mummy? Lily's mum pulled her close for a hug. That girl needs you, she said into Lily's neck. Look after her. She's going to depend on you. She can't live like that. Geoffrey approached and put a paw tenderly on Lily's hand. She held it tightly. So, thank you very much for listening to Chapter 5 of Lilly Prospero and the Magic Rabbit by me, JJ Barnes. I hope you're enjoying it. I hope you're getting, just pleasure out of hearing it. I'm sorry I'm not a better actress. I'm trying my best. And yeah, I will be back again soon. Bye.